Have you ever felt like the deeper you dive into your thoughts, the more you drift from the people around you? Like the more you unravel the world's truths, the less anyone wants to hear what you've discovered? It's not just a fleeting feeling. It's a profound reality that echoes through the ages. Society doesn't just misunderstand deep thinkers, it fears them. Not because they're mistaken, but because they see what others desperately avoid. From Socrates, who questioned Athens into a frenzy, to Nietzsche, whose radical ideas were dismissed as madness, from Galileo, silence for rewriting the cosmos, to Tesla, whose visions were buried by greed, the greatest minds in history have been mocked, exiled, or erased. Why? Because their clarity was a threat, not a gift. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who stared unflinchingly into the human condition, called intelligence a curse, a lonely, heavy burden that isolates those who see the world too clearly. This isn't a feel-good pep talk to lift your spirits. It's a raw, unfiltered plunge into why deep thinkers are pushed to the margins, why society recoils from their insights, and how you can wield your vision in a world that's not ready for it. In a landscape drowning in shallow distractions, only those who embrace their inner exile can carve a path that reshapes the future. Let's start with a truth that cuts deep. Society doesn't reject deep thinkers because they're wrong. It fears them because they're right too soon. Picture ancient Athens, a city buzzing with democracy, but trembling under the weight of its own pride. Socrates roamed its streets, not preaching, but asking questions. Simple, piercing questions that exposed the fragility of people's beliefs. He didn't claim to have all the answers. He just wanted others to think for themselves. But Athens didn't thank him. They put him on trial for corrupting the youth and sentenced him to death by poison. His real crime? Holding a mirror to the city's ignorance. Fast forward to the Renaissance, where Galileo dared to prove the earth orbits the sun. The church, clinging to its geocentric dogma, branded him a heretic, banned his books, and locked him away. His evidence was undeniable, but it threatened the power structure. Nietzsche, in the 19th century, challenged the foundations of morality and religion, arguing that society was built on comforting lies. He was called insane, his works ignored until long after his death. Tesla, who dreamed of free energy for all, was outmaneuvered by industrialists like Edison and died penniless. Hypatia of Alexandria, a brilliant philosopher and mathematician, was torn apart by a mob for teaching reason in a world gripped by fanaticism. These weren't failures. They were visionaries whose truths were too bright for their time. Society didn't push them away for lack of brilliance. It feared them because their clarity disrupted the fragile order of things. So why does intelligence spark such resistance? It's not just a social quirk. It's rooted in the messy, primal wiring of human psychology. Think about this. When you meet someone physically stronger, you might admire their power without feeling diminished. If someone's wealthier, you might envy their success. But it doesn't unravel your sense of self. But when you encounter someone who thinks on a deeper level, someone who sees through the noise, questions what you've always accepted, or grasps what you miss, something shifts inside. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just bring new ideas. They reflect back the limits of those around them. Their presence, even if they're silent, can make others feel exposed, inadequate, or small. And people don't forgive that easily. Intelligence, unlike strength or wealth, strikes at the core of our identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our beliefs, our understanding of the world. When someone challenges that foundation, it feels personal, like a quiet assault on who we are. Instead of curiosity or admiration, most people respond with defensiveness, shutting down or pushing away the source of their discomfort. This isn't just a feeling, it's backed by science. Modern neuroscience shows that when people feel intellectually outmatched, their brain's amygdala, the region responsible for fear and threat detection, lights up like a warning signal. In simple terms, deep thinking doesn't just intimidate, it triggers a primal survival response, as if facing a predator. Why? Because our brains evolved in tribal settings, where fitting in was the key to survival. Being accepted by the group meant food, shelter, and safety. Being cast out meant starvation or death. Deep thinkers, with their challenging ideas and disruptive questions, upset that tribal harmony. They challenge norms, question beliefs, and destabilize the social order. To the brain, that feels like a threat, not a gift. A 2021 Stanford study dug even deeper, revealing something striking. People are less threatened by intelligence in one-on-one conversations, but in group settings, the fear response spikes. Why? Because groups amplify social status. If a deep thinker outshines someone in front of others, the instinct isn't to learn, it's to undermine, exclude, or dismiss them to protect one's standing. Ever had a profound talk with a friend in private, only to see them dodge you in a crowd? That's the dynamic at play. This resistance is compounded by cognitive biases that shape how we think. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows that people with limited knowledge often overestimate their intelligence, brushing off deeper insights with unwarranted confidence. The status quo bias makes us cling to familiar ideas, even when they're flawed, because change feels unsettling. The backfire effect is even more telling. When faced with evidence that contradicts their beliefs, people don't rethink. They double down, rejecting the messenger. Deep thinkers, with their nuanced, challenging ideas, slam into these biases like a wrecking ball. And in today's digital age, the problem is magnified. Social media algorithms prioritize engagement over depth, boosting content that's emotional, controversial, or simplistic. Scroll through any platform. The loudest voices aren't the deepest. They're the ones who spark reactions with catchy soundbites or outrage. Thoughtful arguments? They're buried under a flood of memes, hot takes, and feel-good quotes. Deep thinkers struggle to distill complex ideas into 280 characters or 15-second clips, so their voices get lost in the noise. The internet, for all its promise, often sidelines truth for entertainment. Schopenhauer understood this struggle better than most. He saw intelligence not as a golden ticket, but as a double-edged sword, a gift that isolates as much as it empowers. His philosophy centered on the will, a blind, irrational force driving humans toward pleasure, comfort, and survival. Most people follow this will instinctively, chasing relationships, status, or distractions to feel fulfilled. They find joy in the routine, small talk, Netflix binges, the next paycheck. But deep thinkers are different. They're driven by what Schopenhauer called the will to truth, a relentless, almost obsessive need to understand reality, even when it's painful or inconvenient. While others cling to surface-level pleasures, deep thinkers question the point of it all. Why chase money if it's fleeting? Why crave approval if it's shallow? Why play social games if they're built on pretense? This mindset creates a chasm. Casual conversations feel hollow. Social rituals like gossip or banter feel pointless, and polite lies grate like sandpaper. Schopenhauer wrote, "A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial, not because deep thinkers hate people, but because they can't fake interest in what feels trivial. The more you see, the less you can unsee. The more you understand, the lonelier you become." History is a graveyard of deep thinkers who paid this price. Socrates didn't just annoy Athens, he threatened its ego, so they killed him. Galileo's telescopes didn't just reveal the stars, they exposed the church's fragile grip on truth, so they silenced him. Nietzsche's radical ideas about morality and power were too unsettling, so he was dismissed as a lunatic. Tesla's visions of free energy could have reshaped the world, but they scared profiteers like Edison and Morgan, so he was sidelined. Hypatia, one of the ancient world's brightest minds, was murdered for daring to teach reason in a city consumed by religious zeal. Alan Turing, whose code-breaking saved millions and whose theories birthed modern computing, was persecuted for his personal life and driven to suicide. These weren't failures. They were visionaries whose clarity was too much for their time. Society didn't reject them for being wrong. It feared them for being right. Their ideas didn't just challenge beliefs, they threatened power, comfort, and control. So why does society crave comfort over truth? It's not just our brains, it's the systems we live in. Schools claim to nurture intelligence, but often reward kids who memorize and obey, not those who question or challenge. A student who aces tests by parroting the textbook thrives. One who debates the curriculum is labeled a troublemaker. Workplaces are no better. Companies say they want innovation, but they promote those who fit the culture, not those who shake it up. An employee who suggests bold changes risks alienating the boss. One who nods and follows orders gets the raise. Politics is the worst of all. Leaders who speak hard truths lose to those who pander with empty promises or feel-good slogans. Power thrives on stability, and deep thinkers are anything but stable. They question authority, expose lies, and demand accountability, qualities that make systems, from governments to corporations, nervous. Even today's media plays this game. Clickbait headlines and outrage-driven content rake in views, while nuanced discussions gather dust. Social media algorithms bury depth under an avalanche of viral clips, memes, and hot takes. The world isn't built to amplify deep thinkers. It's built to keep the herd calm and distracted. This dynamic isn't new. It's ancient. Deep thinkers have always been outliers because their clarity disrupts the status quo. But it's not just about society's resistance. It's about the personal toll. Schopenhauer argued that intelligence and happiness are at odds. Ignorance, he said, is bliss because it shields people from the world's harsh realities. Most people can ignore life's big questions. Why are we here? What's the point? And find contentment in routine pleasures. Deep thinkers can't. They see the futility of chasing fleeting things like money, fame, or approval. They notice the contradictions in society's rules, the hypocrisy in its values, the fragility of its comforts. This awareness is a gift, but it's also a weight. Social interactions, built on small talk and status games, feel like a charade. Casual chats about the weather or the latest show bore them. Polite lies, smiling through a bad day, pretending to care about trivial drama, feel unbearable. Schopenhauer believed the smarter you are, the harder it is to connect with others, not because you're aloof, but because you see through the illusions most people lean into. For him, intelligence was a heightened awareness, a blessing that often felt like a curse. Yet Schopenhauer didn't just diagnose the problem. He offered a way forward. He saw intelligence as a double-edged sword. It isolates you, but it also empowers you. His advice for deep thinkers was practical and grounded. First, embrace solitude. It's not loneliness. It's a sanctuary where you can think, create, and grow without the pressure to conform. Use it to write, study, or build something that matters. Second, seek out like-minded souls, even if they're rare. You don't need the whole world to understand you, just a few who do. Find them in books, philosophy, or small intellectual circles, where ideas are currency and depth is celebrated. Third, be strategic with your words. Not everyone's ready for your biggest ideas, so pick your moments and your audience. Share your truths with those who'll listen, not those who'll recoil. Fourth, observe the world like a chessboard. Learn its patterns, decode its unwritten rules, and move with purpose. For Schopenhauer, the goal wasn't happiness, it was wisdom. Ignorance might be bliss, but intelligence lets you see the world for what it is, even if it's raw and unpolished. So are deep thinkers doomed to a life of isolation? Not if they navigate the world with intention. You don't need mass approval, just a handful of people who get you. Find your tribe, whether in person, online, or through the words of great thinkers across time. Learn to bridge the gap between your mind and others. Einstein said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Simplicity isn't dumbing down. It's a way to connect without losing depth. Tell stories, use metaphors, make your ideas relatable, and stay resilient. Rejection is part of the path. Socrates faced it. Galileo endured it. Nietzsche lived it. They didn't let it stop them, and neither should you. History proves that deep thinkers don't just survive, they endure. Their ideas outlive their critics, their work reshapes the world, and their courage inspires generations. Look at the evidence. Every major leap in human progress came from deep thinkers who were initially cast out. Socrates' questions birthed Western philosophy, teaching us to examine our lives. Galileo's defiance rewrote our place in the universe, paving the way for modern science. Nietzsche's radical ideas, once scorned, now influence psychology, literature, and existential thought. Tesla's inventions, dismissed in his time, power our modern world. Hypatia's courage as a woman in a male-dominated intellectual world inspired centuries of rational thought, even after her brutal death. Turing's theories laid the foundation for the digital age, despite his tragic end. These outcasts didn't just change the conversation, they changed the course of history. Society may fear deep thinkers, but it needs them. Without their willingness to see clearly, we'd still be stuck in the shadows of superstition and ignorance. Today's world makes this struggle both harder and easier. On one hand, the digital age drowns out depth with noise. Social media platforms reward quick, emotional content, outrage, humor, or inspiration, over slow, thoughtful discourse. Algorithms push viral clips and catchy quotes, burying nuanced ideas. Echo chambers trap people in bubbles, making them resistant to anything that challenges their views. A deep thinker's voice can feel like a whisper in a storm. On the other hand, the internet offers unprecedented opportunities. Online communities, forums, subreddits, niche blogs connect deep thinkers across the globe. Platforms like YouTube or podcasts let you dive into complex ideas with a click. Digital libraries give you access to the world's greatest minds, from Plato to Schopenhauer, for free. You're not as alone as you think. You just need to look beyond the mainstream noise to find your people. But the challenge remains. Society isn't built to embrace deep thinkers. It's built to maintain comfort. Schools reward compliance over curiosity. Workplaces value loyalty over innovation. Media thrives on distraction, not insight. Even social norms favor conformity over questioning. This isn't an accident, it's by design. Systems, whether political, corporate, or cultural, prioritize stability over change. Deep thinkers, with their restless questions and disruptive ideas, threaten that stability. They expose cracks in the system, hypocrisy, inefficiency, lies, and systems don't take kindly to being exposed. This is why the most celebrated intellectuals were outcasts in their time. Van Gogh died in poverty, his paintings unsold. Kafka's stories, now literary treasures, were barely read before his death. Turing, a war hero, was persecuted into oblivion. Society only loves deep thinkers in hindsight, when their ideas are safe and their threat is gone. So what can you do if you're a deep thinker in a world that resists you? First, own your solitude. It's not a flaw, it's a strength. Use it to create something meaningful, whether it's art, writing, or a new idea. Solitude is where genius takes root. Second, find your tribe. They're out there, maybe in a philosophy group, an online forum, or the pages of a book. You don't need millions to understand you. A few true connections are enough. Third, be strategic. Not every conversation needs your deepest thoughts. Read the room, share selectively, and save your energy for those who'll engage. Fourth, learn to communicate. Complex ideas are powerful, but they land harder when you make them accessible. Use stories, analogies, or humor to draw people in. Fifth, stay tough. Rejection isn't personal. It's proof you're challenging the right things. Let it fuel you, not break you. Sixth, focus on legacy, not applause. Your ideas might not go viral today, but they could change one mind or one world tomorrow. Schopenhauer was right. Intelligence is a curse, but it's also a superpower. It isolates you, but it frees you from the crowd's illusions. It makes you a target, but it gives you the tools to see through the noise. You're not bound by society's fears or its rules. You can question, create, and build in ways others can't. Yes, the path is lonely, but it's also profound. You're part of a lineage of outcasts who saw what others missed. Socrates with his questions, Galileo with his stars, Nietzsche with his truths, Tesla with his dreams. They didn't just survive, they reshaped reality. Society may fear you now, but it will need you later. So here's the charge. Keep thinking, keep questioning, keep seeing. Don't let the world's resistance dim your light. Save your best ideas for those who'll listen. Build your world, even if it's small. You're not here to blend into the herd. You're here to see what others can't and lead where others stumble. The crowd may chase comfort, but progress belongs to those who dare to think deeply. If this struck a chord, if you've ever felt like an outsider for seeing too much, Drop a comment below. Share your story. When have you been pushed away for thinking deeply? Let's spark a real conversation for those who get it. Subscribe to Echoes of Truth for more unfiltered wisdom from history's sharpest minds. The kind of insights that cut through the clutter and light the way forward. Share this with anyone who's ever felt alone in their thoughts. They need to know they're not. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.